Lenore Skenazy, welcome in a sense back to
In a
Dad Saves the
sense,
Bear.
it's not in a sense, it's in reality. I've talked with you before, I've met you many times, and we have video on demand of you and me having this same conversation about 3 years ago.
Well, I think that one of the things that's so interesting about the times we live in is that some important ideas need to be said over and over again, maybe forever.
Ooh,
And
that's cheery, right?
well, there's certain areas of debate that never seem to go away.
That's true.
And but also, we didn't really get a chance to sit down like this
That's
and
true.
and explore together. We did release, which we'll put a link to in the comments, the short film
Mhm,
that we'll talk about a little bit,
mhm.
off the rails, telling some of your story. But we can start there, right? Because you are known as the world's worst mom.
Originally, I was just America's worst mom, then I got bumped up. You get a little older, prestige, you get some awards, suddenly you're the world's worst mom, yeah.
Why?
Why? Because a long time ago, when our younger son was 9, not our, me and John, but me and my husband's son was 9, he wanted us to take him someplace he'd never been before and let him find his own way home by subway here in New York City, where we live. And we did it. Long story short, I took him to a fancy department store, Bloomingdale's. I left him. Bloomingdale's is above a subway stop.
Mhm.
He took the subway down, he took the bus across, he came into our apartment, levitating with excitement that he'd done something grown up in the real world. And I wrote a column about it, why I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone. And 2 days later, I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and NPR, defending myself and getting this America's Worst Mom nickname.
So I came across you and your story. I would have thought I would have come across it on Reason Magazine, which you are a
I
contributor
didn't
to,
write for her then.
but
Right,
no.
right.
I I heard about you first through the coddling of the American mind.
That's the first time you heard about me? Okay, that's late in the
It is late
game.
in the game, and so I was observing in my own, at that time, middle school son,
Hmm.
that he was actually doing okay, but his peers were sort of a nervous wreck. And I was
Yeah, a lot
thinking
of them.
back to, why are they nervous? I remember being at this age, and yeah, you're uncomfortable, but the nervousness, the like sheepishness that I was observing, the like it would just seem very, very different.
Hmm.
And the psychological talk, the self-diagnoses
Yeah,
of
that's
this
fun.
and
Yeah.
that was all new. And so Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff wrote this book, and in it they, among the other things, they tell your story.
Hmm.
And your story of letting Izzy take the subway
Hmm.
actually led me and Lisa to allow our son, pretty close to that age, to take the bus up to an internship halfway across town.
I didn't know that.
And
Wow, that's so great. Wow.
the funny thing is, he I wish he was actually here to tell it because it's really funny.
Hmm.
He got this internship that I think it was like in 7th grade,
How do you get an internship in 7th grade?
because
Wow.
he went to a good school that actually thinks child labor is good, which I agree.
I agree too.
Um, Acton Academy.
Oh,
So
I love acting.
so they have this, they have apprenticeships that they encourage the kids
Okay.
starting in middle school to
Hmm.
do. And he got one, but it was like way north of us. We live at this point we live in Austin.
Hmm.
And we said, Mateo, you're gonna have to do like a Lenore Skenazy and take
I
the
like an Izzy Skenazy. Right.
and take, yeah, that's right. And take public transit, because you're gonna impose hours of extra driving on us, and we don't want to do that.
And you can't drive.
And yeah, and he can't drive himself at that point.
Hmm.
And his stories were sometimes a little harrowing, like people coming on the bus who were
Oh
like
no.
strung out on drugs
Oh.
and like falling on their face. Somebody coming up and said, like, wanting, like, preaching to him and being completely wacky. Like, his stories were really funny, but when he tells them, you could see it's like, I got to experience this thing by myself.
What's amazing is that he has stories, right? It's not like I got taken to soccer and then I played the game for my coach and then I got taken home and then I had to do my homework and then my mom had to time me on my reading log and then I ate the dinner and then I went to bed. That's what I worry, that there's very few stories that kids today get to tell. When I preach what I preach, which is that children need more independence, everybody goes into a reverie about their own childhood and, oh my God, the things we did, it's amazing, I'm alive now. And first of all, they are proud of what they did and they loved it and they have these memories of exploits, and near misses and stupid decisions and excitement. And they say, but I could never let my own kids do that. Or if my mom had known, it's like, your mom knew. Your mom knew you were in the woods. Your mom knew you experimented with things. And yet she let you do it because we didn't think that kids were so fragile that if they made one bad decision or one bad friend or one bad bus trip, that would be the end. And so, no. So I'm just pleased that your son had these great stories to tell, and I'm sure he'll be telling them forever.
All right, I'll keep this quick. If you like what you're hearing and want to hear more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our new content as it comes out every week. And now, back to the conversation. It's interesting that we have moved towards this kind of safety mindset, not just in America, but I think more broadly, although America does seem to be the
We export it.
worst.
Yeah, right.
There's a book I came across, I think it's called Achtung Baby.
Oh, yeah, about Germany. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yes.
an American
Yeah.
who had her kids while she was working in Germany for like
Mm-hmm.
8 years and
Mm-hmm.
came home to like Idaho and was like, I thought America was a free society. Germany was a freer society than America as it pertains to
First of all, there's
this.
every book. There's about the Japanese kids. There's about the kids in France. There's the kids in Finland. And what is sad is that when I've interviewed kids who lived abroad, who then came back here, they felt like they were constricted. I once interviewed a mom whose kid had lived just till age 4 in another country. And when she came back here and is suddenly being put in a car seat and 5-point straps like you're going off to Mars, right? Even that kid felt like she just suddenly her world, just became much smaller.
So why has this happened?
Oh,
I know
well,
this is
this is
why you're here.
this is my sweet spot, right? So actually, I'll tell you the 4 reasons that are in, my book, Free Range Kids. But
And viewers should understand that you
oh
really
yeah,
are the, if not the singular, one of the leading creators of the free range parenting movement. So I mean, that's
listeners should know that I have the trademark on the phrase "free range kids."
yeah. So you are the originator.
I'm the free ranger. I'm not the free ranger. I'm the trademarker of that. But I called my book after the brouhaha of putting my son on the subway and writing the column and getting all this calumny. Is that how you pronounce it? Calumny? Why am I saying that word? Nobody uses it.
I don't even know what that word
Okay, it
means.
doesn't matter. All this, being badmouthed, right? Being raked over the coals, which is calumny or whatever it is. I started a
Is this
blog.
Victorian English that we're going into? Is
That's
that
where
what's
we're
happening?
going. You said
Okay.
you were finding yourself being more and more old school. I'm
This
going
is
back
true.
to like the 1870s now.
It was a better
So
time.
yeah, would have had right.
Oh,
You got to wear a hat all the time. You never had to worry
yeah.
about your hair. I do regret.
Three-piece suits were more common. That
You
much
know
was
what?
true.
Men dressed way better. I actually like the way men dressed in Hamilton. I wish you were wearing that, but be that as it may. What happened? I let my kid ride the subway. I got raked over the coals. Then I started a blog and I called it Free Range Kids. Then I wrote the book Free Range Kids, and I'm a reporter by trade. And so I really wanted to find out, how did we get so much more afraid than my mom was, and probably your mom was
Yeah.
back in the day. And I don't know what age you walked to school, but I walked to school at age 5. Did you?
I can remember as early as I think second grade
Mm-hmm.
walking to and from school.
Okay, so that's 7.
Yeah.
Right. You're a little slow. I started at 5. And
No, girls mature faster at
yeah,
the
we
early
do.
ages.
But yeah,
So
5, we're practically ready to rule the world. Anyways, when I was a 5-year-old and I turned around the corner and then I had to cross a street, and the crossing guard was a kid.
yeah, right.
You remember that?
That's right. That's right.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Now in my neighborhood,
It's
the
probably a
cross
9-year-old,
well,
or
it was a
maybe 13.
Well, here's the weird thing. He was 10 because the school went up till like 5th grade. And I married mine, which nobody understands. It's like I married him many years later, and
You married your crossing
I
guard?
married my crossing guard, but it wasn't like the parents are like, that's why we don't want to have crossing, kids around men. It's not that. He was a 10-year-old, I was a 5-year-old. We married, and years later we realized that, oh my God, I didn't know you were a crossing guard. Did you cross? I was at this corner. I crossed that corner, and I'm 5 years younger. So be that as it may. In that day, we could trust parents, like the social norm was to let your kids go and do things without constant supervision.
Yeah.
And now that's not the norm anymore. We feel like kids who are unsupervised are automatically in danger. So, how did we get from there to here? I think I'll whip you through the 4 reasons, right? One
Okay.
is that the media, right? The media loves if it bleeds, it leads, and that really started in the 70s. I was just reading about this recently that in Philadelphia they came up with a new TV news format, and it was called Eyewitness News on one station, and
Oh,
it was
yeah.
called Action News at another station. But both started in Philly. You're from Philly,
I am. So
yeah,
I remember.
yeah.
I mean, I have a like eyewitness news like triggers childhood things. Yeah,
Triggers is the word,
that's right. Right.
right?
Yeah.
So that's
Secretly
what
traumatized by it.
Right. Well, the whole country seems to have been traumatized it, and perhaps the world, because what they realized was the easiest way to get viewers and to get content was to just use the police scanner, find something horrible happening somewhere, race over to there, stand there with a microphone, and look upset because it was probably pretty upsetting. There was, a stabbing or a murder or a fire or something, somebody falling out of a window.
The mayor has firebombed an entire neighborhood,
Right.
which
Well,
happened
that's
in
Philly.
Philly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. The thing is that it even happened in Idaho. Everybody started doing this particular format of news. And then in the 80s is when you get the spread of cable television, which is the first 24-hour news cycle. And you have to come up with things that people will watch all the time. People will watch stuff that makes them scared, horrified, angry,
Why?
because people love being scared, horrified, and angry. They like fulminating. They like seeing what they believe is reality. And of course, if this is what you keep seeing, there's actually something called mean world syndrome. Have you heard of that?
Mm.
I think that was actually another guy in Philly. I can't remember his name, but there was a sociologist who discovered something that seems pretty obvious in retrospect, which is that if you're watching TV and things seem really horrible and it seems like a very mean world out there, you don't want to go out there. So you stay inside and you watch more TV, which shows you a mean world. And so it's called mean world syndrome. It's the idea that you've been bathed in so much bad news that that's what you believe the world is. And frankly, it would be terrible television to show you everybody else's day. The kid who walked to school and walked home and had a snack and did his homework is not interesting. And so you're always finding these horrible stories, and they are really anomalous. Somebody once said to me, if a Martian came down and said, I don't know why Martians are robots, but it's like, tell me about your world. And it's like, well, do you want to see how like 99.9% of America lives, or do you want to see the 0.1% that's just a disaster? And he says, I'll see the 1 point, the 0.1. And then it's like, well, let's turn on the TV. Let's go to the internet, let's see what's trending on Twitter. And so you really get this outsized view of crime and misery, and a very, it's almost you're unable to picture how banal and simple and safe most of life is.
It it does feel like some of this is and I know this is kind of like a easy place to go and extrapolate all kinds of theories, this sort of pop evolutionary psychology. Oh, well, we're risk averse or we're threat aware because it's how we kept
Right, right, right. If
alive.
you heard
And
there was a rustle, and you better assume it's a lion, because if it was,
yeah, being
right.
afraid of the dark is
Hmm.
because there's probably like a snake that's going to kill you or a bear. Like there's these things that are truthy, whether they're exactly true or even provable is the harder question. But it does seem to be the case that that is a hardwired part of our psychology to be biased towards the negative, to have a negativity bias. Um,
For sure it is. And if you've read The Power of Bad, have you read that by John Tierney? It says that, but in more pages.
I mean, and we even find it even here on YouTube, which is you want to have your thumbnails be provocative.
Of course.
And the best way you can hack someone into hearing something less provocative or more maybe uplifting
Right.
is hook them with
Right.
something
You won't
provocative.
believe what she said next.
Yeah,
Right.
or you name it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Mm-hmm. Predators hate her. Right,
Yes,
right.
yes, yes. Look out, sex traffickers,
Right, right, right.
your worst nightmare is coming, or some
Right. That
whatever.
happened to her kid.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, so you've got the
Right,
news.
so you got the news, the media is out there. You live in a litigious society, and we all start sort of thinking like lawyers, and you think like, well, how would I ever defend myself? And we just get to the point where almost nothing seems safe. And sometimes I comb through the Consumer Product Safety Commission warnings, and recalls. And I should have done that before today, and I didn't. So I'll just have to remember an old one, which was when they recalled, oh my God, there's so many good ones. They recalled like 140,000 children's sweatshirts. Why?
I I hesitate to guess. Go.
The reason is because there was a zipper on them. People usually think it's the those strings, the drawstrings. But this one had a zipper pull that fell off. One of them had a zipper pull that fell off, and that posed a
Choking hazard.
okay. Do you think your grandma would have said, "Here's a button. I know it's don't play with it. It's a choking hazard." I mean, we just sort of redefine everything in terms of the really worst case scenario.
I brought this up in another video actually, that my early in our marriage, my wife Lisa started a cloth diaper company.
She started a company.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah, it was making cloth diapers. They were
wow,
called We Huggers, and it was really cute because like the
that's
little
really
wraps
great.
were like these little mitten hands, so they were adorable.
Hmm.
And she got them into like 75 stores and stuff.
Wait, and then she had to recall them because one
Sh
of them had a thread.
Well, she didn't, but the Consumer Product Safety Commission had some lead paint and Chinese toys scare. I think this was around 2009. And you know who got screwed by that? Like the
You.
Melissa, well, yes, but like everyone that made things that had nothing to do with that, like
Hmm.
the wooden blocks that don't have paint, suddenly need to get tested for lead paint.
Oh, yeah.
Garments that don't have paint need to be tested for paint. And it's just it's just this hyper worst case scenario, rational thought,
Right.
cost benefit be damned.
Detached from reality. Yeah, no, if you've seen like there's necklaces with a little say there's a fish, little doodad on it. It'll say not for anyone under 13 because the assumption is that because there's a little bit of white paint which is made from lead in the eyeball of the fish that's the bauble on the necklace,
Right,
somebody's going to eat them and it's going to be somebody under 13 because 2-year-olds and 12-year-olds are apparently all the exact same, and that if you eat, I don't know, 30 million of them, which I think there'd be problems like eating all those necklaces, right? But the problem is the lead in the eyeball of the fish. So it is this it, it drives me nuts because it's not real safety. But if you say, oh my God, it doesn't matter, somebody will say, you don't care about lead poisoning. It's like, I do care about lead poisoning. I'm happy that lead is not being, put into the air by horrible gasoline, leaded gasoline. And I do think that if lead paint is all chipping off your walls, you should paint over it or you should get rid of it or put
right.
wallpaper up. But there's the expression, the dose makes the poison. If it's the eyeball on the
Yes.
fish, that's not a dose. That doesn't exist. And yet it gets recalled. So the other thing I was going to tell you about was in the Consumer Product Safety Commission, they had somebody got recalled these um, socks that had a pom pom on them. Oh, and then sandals that had a flower on them, and anything that could detach from anything. This could detach. I mean, like anything that could detach poses a choking hazard. And it's like, well, do you live in a world where there's stuff? Have you ever seen a flower that can detach from its stem? Have you ever seen a button? Have you ever seen a dime?
I was just going to
These are
say,
all detached from other things.
every coin, and
Yes.
I happen to have been raised by an ear, nose, and throat surgeon.
Oh my
And so
God.
and so I
You
actually
heard about these.
I heard about these all the time. My dad hates fruit shaped magnets on
Yeah, refrigerators.
refrigerators
Yeah.
because he's had to go into the ER and remove them from kids' noses and throats. Uh, he's
He
always
probably hates
warned.
beans.
Well, carrots, like be careful when you buy.
Yeah,
I've gotten like an earful of
as it were.
aspirating
Right.
risks, as
Uh-huh.
I would hear. You're gonna aspirate on that. Not
Yeah.
gonna choke,
Yeah, there's
aspirate.
aspirate, and then the other word is occlude. That's going to occlude your breathing,
So
right?
so I get it. I get it.
Yeah. So did your wife have to stop her company?
It just made everything more difficult because as is often the case, these things are made in the abstract,
Mhm.
and then of course companies like Mattel can lobby to have.
Right. Except if it's on Barbie.
Yeah, or
Right.
we can have our own exemption so we can test Barbie in our own
Right, right,
facility
right, right.
at a
She's fine.
massive
She's fine.
scale
She's
at a
fine.
cost of 2 pennies per Barbie.
Right.
But if you're like the Melissa and whatever with the
Doug.
wood toys,
Yeah,
Melissa
yeah.
and Doug, I mean, they were one
Right.
of the companies that like got really hurt by this. Or us, like this tiny, like
Right.
never made a profit ever thing.
Maybe you should thank them. Hey,
Yeah,
thank God we
they
got
cut.
out of that stupid diaper business. There was no way I could stop her. Right. I'm calling on the government.
So, okay, so you've
All
got
right, so you have a
if it
litigious
bleeds, it
society.
leads.
Yeah, it bleeds, it leads, litigious society, expert culture. And
What's
this is
expert culture mean?
expert culture is like all the magazines and all the advice books telling you that there's a certain way to do things, a certain way to have the best conversation with your kid, a certain way to get them to eat certain things you should or shouldn't do, say or shouldn't say.
What to expect when you're expecting?
What you expect when you're expecting started out with it was like this big. It was like 300 pages to begin with, and then 405. It was like pregnant, It just kept getting bigger and bigger, and finally, they had little babies. There's like what to eat when you're expecting, and I'm like, I don't know, food, maybe some more, maybe eat an apple. It's just let me cough. Thank you for letting me cough. There was one section and I think I went back a couple versions to find it, but it said, remember, each forkful that you eat is a chance to build a healthy baby. And choosing not to eat, more raw kale with a couple of, unpopped cranberries is is a decision to not care about your child's future. And they really made you feel so guilty. I mean, it went on like if you eat well, which makes you think that if you don't eat well, the corollary is badness. If you eat well, you can have, better birth weight, better IQ, better chances of thriving, better likelihood of going to Princeton later on. And it did two things. It first of all, it made you worried that every single bite that you ate made or could possibly break your kid. And then if you do have a kid with any problems, it's your fault. And that's really what kills me because there's this life is so much more random than that. And fate is so fickle. And one of the things, actually, I was going to get to it as number five, but the idea of control, that we can control everything that our kids do, see, eat, wear, hear, lick, and that if we do, they'll be fine. And if we don't, they're damned, is really the thing that's driving parents the most crazy. But I'll get to the fourth thing first, because I think the control one is the most interesting. But also, we live in, a market society, and the easiest dollar you can get from any human being is the dollar of a terrified parent, especially if you've terrified them and then told them, I'm going to make your kid safe with this product or thing.
To what extent, there's this sort of truism, but I think it's literally true that
This truism, right?
but I don't know the exact number, but it's something like
True-ish truism.
80% of consumer dollars are controlled by the woman of the house.
Oh,
That
I like that.
that spending that basically, for all the talk of patriarchy, the capitalist American economy, again
Uh-huh.
to the extent it's capitalist, which is mixed, um, is
Brought to you
actually
by our sponsor.
yeah,
Now back.
is yes, but the sponsor classical liberalism.
Right.
The is that actually we do have a very strong, basically mom runs the economy,
Mm-hmm.
like literally as a
Right.
consumer. Like
Right.
everything is geared towards
Mom spends,
mom.
dad saves.
Or, on average,
Mm-hmm.
obviously every household's going to differ at any given moment, but on average,
Mm-hmm.
that's the facts. And having worked in television,
Yeah.
and seen the behavior of Madison Avenue and ad spending,
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely the way it broadly works. Like we were in a weird, ultimately failed network, Spike TV, network
Because
for
it was,
men.
yeah, really, duh.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean that was really like
Right. Why
in a
don't we
lot of
have a
ways,
network where we sell things to babies?
right? It's like
Is that
it's
not going to
like
work?
first network for men first,
No.
gone, but
Right.
the rest are still around for a reason for now.
So I have to tell you, when my first paying job, which took me a while, was at advertising age because I was so fascinated by it because you'd flip through the
Yeah.
pages. And I remember reading an article making me want to work there, which was about Downy fabric softener. And they said, we were originally trying to sell it as makes your fabric softer or something like that. And that wasn't getting us anywhere. And then we decided to change our slogan to for moms who care. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? They they have to tell us that we're bad parents if we don't buy this and we don't care. I mean, like that was just as basic as could be. And so I went and worked there for like 5 years because I mean, I would have worked there forever if I hadn't lost the job, but I worked there for 5 years and I still get it because it's so interesting to see what moves people.
It's very hard. I think it's one of these things that um, trying to figure out how to create change, you immediately run into human nature
Oh,
and
that.
and parts of human nature that you don't like, that don't seem rational. They might be purposeful, but they're not rational. And so, I think we could, to some extent, be understanding of the fact that you have this emergent order of fear-based nonsense
Yeah.
and sort of preying on the worst angels of our nature, because when we try to not do that, like just say pizza, the store.
Right, right, right.
What do you
Doesn't
got? Oh,
work.
you got pizza. I got it.
Yeah,
No,
right,
like
right, right.
fabric softener makes your fabric softer.
Right, right,
No,
right.
no.
Meat, it's a
Yeah,
dead cow.
yeah.
Right.
Don't buy this
Right.
unless you love your kids or
That
what.
works, yeah. So I'm up against human nature all the time because fear sells. And what I've realized in all these years of talking about the same topic is like, why don't we let our kids do half the things that we did and what that's doing to kids and what that's doing to us? How do you move people from I'd like to let my kid do something, but I'm so afraid. Yesterday, I was at another hair and makeup lady, and the she was saying she remembers walking to school, and now she's in the same neighborhood, and she won't let her own kids walk to school. And she said, "I'm just so afraid of predators because they're out there." And I didn't want to start giving her statistics because nobody cares about the statistics, but I'll give them to you, which is if you wanted your kid to be kidnapped by a stranger in a Law and Order type kidnapping, maybe you remember this. Do you know how long you'd have to keep your kid outside?
Was it 700,000 years, something like that?
750,000
Oh, I
years.
was close.
Yes. Very good. Right. I mean, because usually people say 2 hours and sometimes
Yeah.
people say 2 minutes.
So
But
just,
the rationality, nothing, you're right, that doesn't matter. It's, compared to I saw an episode of Law and Order and this kid was just walking to school. So aside from,
and I should just side note, which for those of you watching, click on the link. You will
oh
see our
yeah,
film.
right.
Lenore's story was recreate. Explain the literally Law and Order
All right, but
connection.
then you're going to have to remind me about my point, which is rationality.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll come back to it.
So Law and Order did an episode that seemed to be based on my letting my son ride the subway by himself at age 9 because there was a kid who looked exactly like my son at age 9, who in the episode says to his mom, "Mom, can I take the subway by myself?" And she's like, "No, no, it's too dangerous." And the dad is sort of like, "Maybe that'll be all right." But finally, somehow he convinces the kid says, "Oh, come on, please let me go. It'll be safe." And I'm like, "It won't be safe. You're on Law and Order SVU. You're not going to make it out alive, kid."
And we know
So
where this
right,
is heading.
right, right, right. I guess I'll get home fine. Which is our whole point about the media. Anyway, so she's been knitting him a scarf and mittens, and he puts them on, and he goes to school. And does he get to school?
This, all you have to say is there is a shot where there's only one mitten on the
Yes, the
ground.
single mitten on the ground.
And it's
Right, right,
slow
right,
push in on
right, right.
fallen mitten.
Right, because there's no empty swings.
Chum chum.
Right. Anyways, that's the episode, and it's horrible,
Yeah.
and you see him in a morgue. It's really gross. But I was bringing up Law and Order because um, there's sort of no way to counter the fear that has been shoved down our throats and the messages from, every which way that if you care, you'll always be watching your kid, and if you take your eyes off of them, you won't. So, what I realized over the years of talking about this is that statistics don't move people. And, reassuring people or telling them this is really great for your kid can't move a person. The only thing that changes a parent is their kid. And that's why. So I wrote Free Range Kids and I was the free range kid mom, I guess, for like 10 years. And then in 2017, Jonathan Haidt, who we all love, and Daniel Shuckman, who was for 10 years the chairman of FIRE, were talking to each other and they were talking about what was happening on campus. And there were a lot more kids needing mental health services. And I'm glad there's no stigma about this, but it's sad that the numbers were going off the charts. And they were the kids seem to be confusing feeling uncomfortable with an idea, a book, a speaker, and literally being unsafe, right? They were
Yes.
needing why would you need a safe
Speech
space?
is violence.
Right. And that's wrong. That's literally wrong. In fact, speech is instead of violence, right? But if you need a safe space or a trigger warning, that means that you feel so threatened that it feels physical. And they were talking about it and they were saying like trying to change the mind or open minds or just make them more bold at 18, 19, 20 is a late stage intervention. Isn't
Yeah.
there some way to start younger and sort of raise kids who are a little more resilient, open to new ideas and experiences and ideas? And John said, well, I loved Free Range Kids, the book, and I like Lenore a lot. Why don't we talk to her about starting a nonprofit? And so the three of us together with Peter Gray,
Hmm.
who I would recommend for this.
Yeah. And who I interviewed at length actually early around the time I interviewed you actually.
Oh yeah,
So I should bring him back on the show, but we have a lengthy interview about his book Free to Learn.
Free
And
to Learn.
yeah.
Yeah, who talks about the real importance of different age kids with playing together without supervision, without structure, just having to figure everything out. Anyway, so the four of us together found Let Grow. And what I said then, and I say to this day, is like for thought leadership, like enough with the thoughts. Thoughts go like this. Oh, that sounds good. I'd like to try that. But if something went wrong, oh my God, I couldn't live with myself. Forget it. Oh no, no. Right? You go from I'm going to let my kid go to no, because if something went wrong, and this is what's the most interesting thing to me about our culture now is that it's a knee-jerk reaction whenever you say, how about you let your kid walk to the bus stop? How about you let your kid go into the store? It's always, well, I'd like to, but if something happened, I couldn't live with myself, so no. So, and that's not something that our parents thought about. It wasn't always going to this darkest, what I call the worst first thinking, going to the worst case scenario first. So, long story coming around, which I didn't want to lead thoughts. I want to lead action because action changes parents. If you actually do let your kid walk to the store, take the bus and have some guy preaching at him or some guy falling down in front of him or some
Yeah.
guy strung out on drugs in front of him, and the kid comes home and they won't believe what happened on the bus today. Oh my God, it was so exciting. It was so weird. Dad, it was so wild. This guy was talking to me. When you have that experience with your own kid, then you can let him go again. But you can't until you are, it's sort of like you can't let that happen until you've let it happen. Once you've seen it happen and you've realized, oh, my kid is fine, this is great, he is coming home, then you keep getting this reinforcement that allows you to keep letting them do more. But how do you get them to do it that first time when they haven't done it yet? And the circular reasoning is if I let go, something terrible will happen. So let grows big, very extremely simple, free idea is what we call the Let Grow experience, where schools give kids the homework assignment. Actually, have something written on my hand here. Don't forget, have to call this person. Ignore that.
Stick of butter.
Right. Loaf of bread, right. Carton of milk, right.
That's a deep cut for those of us that grew up watching PBS.
That's right, which is everybody, viewers like you. Anyways, it says go home and do something new on your own without your parents, with your parents' permission, but without your parents. And the reason this let grow experience is such a big deal, even though it is free and simple and one sentence long, although now we have it as a curriculum and there's page after page after page. But basically, it is taking away the stigma of you being the only person letting your kid do it and actually taking away a little of your volition. It's like, I didn't think it was a good idea, but he had to do something for school. And so
Yeah.
our neighbor's kid was going to go to the store. So they went to the store together. So it's this push. It's putting the cart before the horse. The cart is letting go because once you've let go, then you can let go again. And so we push people, we nudge, whatever the Cass Sunstein is, we nudge you into letting go so that you get this amazing experience of like, look at my kid. She brought home a stick of butter, a carton of milk, and a puppy. That's wrong. But I mean, you get the fun experience of seeing your kid do something in the world. And I would ask you, viewers, if you're parents, to think about, I'll ask you, you're a parent, to think about the time you were most proud of your kid.
Oh, I mean, in some ways it's hard to think about one.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I'm most proud, and it's in this category.
Okay.
that we said, "Hey, Matteo, what do you think about like going to Italy after you graduate high school?"
Mhm.
And he said yes, and he did it.
Wow.
And he's actually, he's it's freshman year, and it is this weird thing. It's like where he's like, "This kind of sucks. It kind of feels like high school again."
Why? He's in
Um,
Italy.
well, yeah, but like the class stuff, the
Oh,
school part.
yeah, that school stuff's gonna go on for 4 years,
And it's
guy.
like, and it's like, and I talk to other people because it's been a little while since I've been in college, and I'm not a big fan of the institution anymore.
Hmm.
But and everyone's like, "Oh well, yeah, the first 2 years kind of suck," and it's like, you know what? Usually when things suck for an extended period, we change them. Right? Maybe we should make not have the first 2 years of this thing suck. But anyway, I am so proud that he was willing to do it. That he was like, "Yes, I'll do that. I will go to a foreign city where I don't speak the language with no friends. I'm going to have he has nobody, he doesn't know, he didn't go in there knowing a single classmate. I didn't even have that. I went to Penn State. I've been with my best friend since 5th grade.
Oh, wow.
So I had the opposite. I had
Yeah.
like super safety blanket when I
Uh-huh.
left school. So that, and I do credit you, your inspiration on that. We were kind of primed for thinking this way. But one of the things that's so important about what you are doing and the argument you're making here for action is that you train yourself as a parent on this.
Your kid trains you. That's what I'm trying to say. Once you've let go, then your kid trains you because they were okay. And just as this incredible instinct towards fear and, safety and worry and anxiety does seem to be hardwired, there's also this hardwiring of look at my kid. I mean, that's why people are boring and they're always showing you pictures of your children and their grandchildren, but it is you're so thrilled to your core when you see your kid do something without you there. And that is the big reward of being a parent is like, wow. I mean, I just asked this. I was just giving a lecture, I don't know, a couple nights ago, and everybody's story was like, oh, she went to the store or she climbed higher or he put his dish in the sink when he was on the overnight. And, he never does that with us, but he did it there. And you realize that's when you realize like a couple things. One is that your kid is not just okay when you're there. That's a biggie.
Yeah.
Two is that everything that you've been saying has not been for naught. All this child rearing stuff that you've been doing since they were born is like, oh, well, now he understands. Like to be a good guest, you do put your dish in the sink. Or, she is a little braver than I thought, or she can do things on her own. It's this great feeling. And I used to think, like, America's Worst Mom became World's Worst Mom became a TV show, and I was dealing with all these parents who were very, very nervous about their kids, and I would send the kids out to do things while I sat with the parents who were just beside themselves.
Yeah.
And one time, I taught a kid how to ride a bike. He was 10 years old. He'd never ridden a bike before. And when we came back from that, the mother went into to her house and said to her mother, the Russian grandmother, "Guess what, Mom? Sammy can ride a bike." And the grandmother goes, "What? Our Sammy ride bike? Yes, Sammy can ride a bike. Sammy can ride a bike." And they were like dancing around. And I'm like, who kept him from riding a bike? Who kept him from riding a bike and going on an overnight and walking to school and even cutting his own meat? It was them. But here they were, so proud and excited. So that's hardwired into us to really want to see our kids succeed without us there because that's the only evidence that we've done a good job. That's the only evidence that
Yeah.
they're going to be okay without us. And that is really primal because you have kids or you raise kids so that they will be okay when you're not there, right? For one reason or another. Let's just put it that way. And so I think two things are happening. One is that you're getting this very primal thrill of seeing that your kid has taken you into their heart and into their head. They're doing things right, or they're scrambling and they're figuring things out. That's great. You were so proud, clearly, of these bus rides
Oh yeah.
that he
Yeah.
took,
Yeah.
right? And then the other thing I think is happening is that we have a culture that has almost superimposed this extraordinary fear on us. I mean, like,
Oh yes.
right? And I'll give you an example, but then you have to remind me that I'm going to talk about OCD. So just remind,
Yep.
it's like hard to
Okay.
remember everything. So here's an example. A lady wrote to me recently to say that she had started what we call a let grow play club. Schools can start them or individuals can start them where mixed age kids just play together. There's no devices, there's no structure. Kids figure everything out on their own. But in this case, the first 3 times she'd had it, and this was in a suburb in Montana, right? There's fewer people in Montana than in this theater today. Okay. So
Yeah.
she
Low
had
population state.
low population state, and actually she had a weird last name, so I could Google her street, and it was just like house lawn, house lawn, house lawn, house lawn, car parked, house lawn. It was extraordinarily safe looking and empty, I would say. Anyway, so she'd had the 8 kids playing, and the first 3 times the parents watched them the whole time. And
In Montana.
in Montana. And so here's what happened. So then she said, for the next time, she said, how about the next time they get together? I'll be at home, I'll be inside, but they can play in the yard. And the dad actually said, only in the backyard, because the front yard, I don't know, if anything terrible happened to my kid, I would have to kill myself. And that's been an interesting thing for me to chew on, because
The dad says this is even weirder, but
there's I'd say like
yeah,
1 out of every 10 really worried
parents is the
parents is
dad.
the dad. But what was so interesting to me was that not only that he'd gone to this terrible place first, but that there was absolutely no recognition of reality, which is that you're in a suburb and the front lawn or the back lawn doesn't matter, and that your kids are not going to run into the street because they know better than that. They were 5 to 8 years old. And also it, it was like a new level. It's like, wow, not only is something terrible going to happen to my kid,
Then I'm gonna kill
I'm gonna be
myself.
dead too. Who does that leave? I guess that leaves my wife left, and maybe a baby or something. So I feel like the fact that that was not a dad saying, I know I have a serious mental illness, but I'm already imagining myself dead if my child plays for an hour on the front lawn instead of the back lawn here in suburban Montana. So so the fact that this has become so normalized to think that catastrophically and that depressingly about kids doing anything. Like, and we're not talking about them working in the salt mines. We're talking about them playing for an hour, playing
Yeah.
something good, right?
I'd
So,
even make the arguments for them working in the salt mines.
well, you would, right? It's him, right? Right. Salt mines,
You learn a thing or two.
right, right. Maybe putting their dishes in the sink. Anyways, my point about OCD is this: I feel like our culture has trained us to think that way. And in fact, when I was
To catastrophize.
to catastrophize, and it's been a slow steady drip of this way of thinking. And when I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone, the question I got asked most in all these talk shows was, well, that's great, but what if he hadn't come home? So they took something that was triumphant, and triumphant only in that they made it triumphant, it was just pretty normal, and turned it into like, let's get this back into the right lane. The lane is you're supposed to go, you took your eyes off him and something terrible happened. And the fact that it didn't happen doesn't matter. We're going to go talk about that as if it did.
We'll have
Right.
the hypothetical conversation we wanted to
Right.
have, which is,
Right.
what did you feel like? What would you have felt like if you came outside and saw the one mitten on the ground?
Right, right, right. Or your kid was abducted from the front lawn in, suburban Billings or whatever. So I feel like having created a culture that thinks that it's normal to worry this way, even parents who remember walking the same 3 blocks to the bus stop from the same house when they were kids, can't let their own kids do that now because they're just too scared. I feel like that's been superimposed, right? We know that's the same 3 blocks. It's this, and if your kid is just as smart as you, and we all think our kids are as smart as us, most of them, then it shouldn't be so scary. But anyway, so the fact that it is scary means that when you do let your kid go and do something, that's exposure therapy, right? What is exposure therapy? It's when somebody is very anxious about a dog, right? And so I'm going to show you a picture of a dog today, and you're like, "Ugh." And when you come back for our next session, I'm going to show you a dog across the street, and you're like, okay. And then the next session, you're going to be on the sidewalk and the dog is just 15 feet away. Okay. And now tomorrow is the big day. We're going to have you in a room with the dog, and the dog comes over and it's like,
Yeah.
you
It's a
know,
little cavapoo that looks like a toy stuffed animal,
right,
and
right,
you're
right. And
scared, and it's like,
right,
what's
right,
wrong with you?
right. And it's licking you and it's wagging its tail. And you're like, can I bring him home? Mommy, can I keep him? So that's exposure therapy, showing you that something that you thought was terrifying isn't. And this is exposure therapy for America. When your teacher tells your kid you have to do something new on your own, which means that you, the parent, must let them, you do, and you change. That's why I talk about this all the time. If you listen to Jonathan Haidt now, that's what he's saying. Take away the phone and open the door. We're the open the door part. And when you're doing it as a group, like everybody from the school or everybody from your church, or just you and these 3 people who are willing to do it with you, you let the kids go, it changes you. And that's the only thing that changes you, not thinking, doing.
Um, Aristotle has this formulation of character that's basically says action creates habits, and habits create character, and character creates who you are. And I think that is so true. There
Wait,
is
wait,
a
wait. I'm busy trying to remember. Action creates habits.
yeah that your habits, are action put into place and
Put
repeated,
something right.
28 days or whatever, like
Right.
but there's, the question of like, how do you get to be who you are?
Mm-hmm.
It starts with the things you do. You do these things.
Mhm.
There's that phrase, fake it till you make
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. It's great.
And I think
Yeah,
it's like, it's actually profoundly true. It's
yeah.
like deep wisdom that
Mm-hmm.
fake it till you make it is a thing. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody that's ever gotten promoted
Yeah.
and realized like, oh shit, I don't really
Uh-huh.
know what I'm supposed to do,
Uh-huh.
but I
But here
guess I
I
should
am.
act like I
Right,
know what I'm
right,
supposed
right.
to do.
How about the people who go on a dance floor? It's like, oh, I look so stupid. I feel so self-conscious. And then pretty soon you're dancing and having fun. It all is getting over that hump. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Um, so our mutual friend, Dr. Camilo Ortiz,
Oh, yes.
is has actually, and we've had him on the show to
I
talk
know, I know.
in depth about cognitive behavioral therapy. You guys teamed up
Yeah.
and went deep, went into the world of like some rigorous
That
investigation
was all
into,
him. I mean,
well, but
I
he
I
still
I high-fived him, right,
he
right.
used your method
Yeah,
as actual a kind of clinical therapy.
mhm,
Tell me
yeah.
about, the outcomes of that, because I
It's
know
my
he
favorite thing that has happened so far, I'd say, in my life, which is that it seemed to me like letting go made everybody feel more confident and happy and optimistic. And the let go experience, which we keep pushing, is, how do I prove that that's what's really happening? So Camilo, who'd heard about the let go experience and who thought it was a great idea, decided to try independence as therapy for kids with a diagnosis of anxiety. And what he did is it was just a 5-week program. And he found 4 kids, like parents who, told them about their kids, who were like so anxious. I mean, I finally read the paper. It's so sad. I mean, the anxiety is not just like, oh, I'm scared to do that. It's like their hearts would be racing, or sometimes they'd be throwing up, or they'd be like weeping at the idea of going to school or walking outside, just really
crippling.
rough, sad, right? I
Yeah.
mean, nobody wants to see their kid that way. Anyway, so he found 4 families like that. And what he did is the first week he would meet just with the parents. And I'm talking about the 2 parents. He didn't do group therapy.
Mhm.
So he would meet with the 2 parents and he found out from them, what's bringing you here? What is the biggest problem that you see? And I'll trying to decide which story to tell you. I'll tell you about the boy. One boy is 10 years old, and he was afraid to go upstairs or downstairs in his own house without a mom or dad. And so the parents tell Camilo that. And then actually, Camilo shows the video that you made that you're linking to here about off the rails, about
Yeah.
how great it is to be independent. Much shorter video than this. And, just as a sort of bracing example of like, this is your fear has been shoved down your throats. It's not you, it's the culture. I bet you can let go. So then the next week, when the kid comes in normal cognitive behavioral therapy, the idea would be exposure to the very thing that you are afraid of, like we were talking about with dogs. And so it would normally be, I think, I'm not a psychologist, but I hear you're afraid to sleep in your own bed, or I hear you're afraid to go upstairs and downstairs in your own house and you're 10. How about tonight you go upstairs for 5 minutes? Okay. That would be exposure to that
Yeah.
exact fear. And then come back, and the next week it's going to be 10 minutes. And then how about you stay up there, and for the afternoon? There was no mention of the humiliating fear at all. It was just this. It's like, hey, you're 10. I've been talking to your parents about independence. I bet there's some things you want to do on your own that you haven't done yet. Maybe because you thought they'd say no. Now I've primed your parents. Let's hear. And what was interesting is that these kids who were so afraid of some things actually had things that they did want to do on their own. This particular
Hmm.
kid, he wanted to take the Long Island Railroad. Um,
A lot of public transit therapy going
it
on.
is, it is. Yeah, there you go. So come to me, come to New York. He also wanted to walk home from school. The day he wanted to walk home from school for the first time, his mom took off work because she herself was so anxious and worried about it, she couldn't function. So there's a little bit of a, you know, a bleeding over from the parent to the kid, from the kid to the parent. And so he walked home, and then she actually knew somebody along the route who called her and said, he seems to be going in the wrong way, but he made it the right way and he came home. And then the next time he wanted to do it, she could go to work, right? And then that became normal. And then he did take the Long Island Railroad 4 stops, and that's 10 miles, and that's like the hero's journey, right? I
Yeah,
mean, he
yeah.
went someplace far and came back and was
Transformed.
transformed, and the parents were transformed. And so the coolest part of his story is that he was a fifth grader. And so sixth grade is starting. It's a new school. And the schools, because this is our culture that I think inculcates fear and just not believing enough in your kid, sends home a letter to all the parents. Your child is starting sixth grade. This is such a momentous change and such a big thing for him to deal with, him or her to deal with. Of course you can come, because they're going to be getting their new locker and a homeroom and new halls and new people. I mean, it's all like, back to the salt mines. It's like it's all so scary. Nobody has ever managed this on their own.
Never
So
mind like the 13-year-olds that came across on boats to this country that are your great grandparents.
right, and had to
It's like, how
learn a
did
new
that happen?
learn a new language and didn't have a skill. Yes. So in this case, he said to his parents, "You know what? I got this." And so he went to school by himself that first day of sixth grade. And when he came home, he told his parents, almost everybody else had their parents with them. So so you went from not going upstairs on your own to going to sixth grade on your own. And the parents, rather than feeling like, oh, this is terrible, or he doesn't need us anymore, or that seems too dangerous, why did we ever let him do it? They're feeling great. And so that's what this whole idea is. Independence is a way of finding out a bunch of things. One is that the world is not as scary as you thought. Two is, if you screw up, that's okay. And I have a nice story about that from Kimilo too. And three is that your parents believe in you. The the thing that upsets me is that a lot of kids today know that their parents love them very much. I'm standing next to you at the bus stop. I love you. I love you. I love you. But they don't know that their parents believe in them. And when I've asked people, I'll do this little experiment with you. Close your eyes, and I won't do it as long as it normally takes,
Okay.
because that would make for terrible YouTube TV. But close your eyes and think of somebody who didn't believe in you, somebody who thought you were, dumb or fat or slow, or just and then if you've thought of somebody, yes.
You know what? I've got to say, I am blessed. It's hard for me to think of that. I also came from an Italian family where all the aunts and uncles and everybody thinks you're the smartest person in the whole world. But no,
How could they
I've
all
got
think
one in
so?
mind.
Okay, so
Okay.
open your eyes now and tell me if where you feel that. Do you feel that anywhere in your body?
You feel it like right here,
Mm-hmm.
which is weird.
Not weird. No. I mean, it's so disheartening. There's your heart,
Yeah.
right? It's a burden, right? It
Yeah.
pulls you
There's a weight. You
down.
can feel yeah, like literally a weight pulling you down.
Okay. Now we're gonna do the fun one. Look at
Okay.
you, look really sad. Right? Yeah. No, I thought of a jerk too. Horrible, horrible old boyfriend we won't discuss. Okay, now close your eyes
Okay.
and think of the opposite. Think of somebody who really thought you were terrific and
Yep.
thought you were like God's gift, or just so great or so smart or so cute,
Yeah.
like early on. Okay. Are you thinking of that person?
Mhm.
Okay. Can you tell me who it was? You can open your eyes.
It's my grandfather, my mom's dad. He just adored me. I could do no wrong.
Okay. Do you feel that anywhere?
It actually for me is like I feel a little lightheaded.
Huh.
Yeah, like it's like whew, like a little like it's up here actually for me.
Well, you look like you're going to cry, but I want to say that I cried the first time I thought about it too. I thought about a seventh grade teacher who was just really
I'm a
transformed.
blubbery Italian. Getting me to cry is not that hard.
Yeah, really. This is like, yeah, fish in a barrel. But the point is that one pulls you down, and I didn't, we didn't practice this. And the
No, no,
point is
no.
it's uplifting. It's the wind beneath your wings. And it really takes somebody believing in you before you believe in yourself for you to believe in yourself. And why wouldn't we want our kids to know that that's us? I believe in you. I think you're smart. I think you're going to be okay. I think if you screw up, that's not the end of the world. All that allows you to sort of go out into the world and fly, as opposed to this, which is, I love you, but you're in danger. I'm worried about you. I'm just going to be with you all the time because otherwise all bets are off.
The term that I learned early in exploring all these things with your work and Jonathan Haidt and this whole world of psychologists, Peter Gray, Dr. Ortiz, is internal locus of
Oh,
control.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That like psychology's got a lot of like we were talking before we started about the difference between the blurry reality and the high resolution fiction that we want.
Right, right, right.
Everything needs to be in focus. It's
Yeah.
science to report things with more detail than they actually can have. But to the extent psychology's got some stuff that works and is repeatable, as I understand it, the correlation between having an internal locus of control, which is to say, my choices actually matter. They have force, they have agency. I can choose, correlates with happiness more than anything else. And the inverse is victimhood. I am a victim of circumstances. That's the external locus of
Right.
control. It's the system. It's the nefarious players in the world who are trying to control me. It's the scary world out there that I will be victimized by. And there's nothing I can do about it other than I guess lock myself in my room until I'm 45 years old.
I think of it less in terms of victimization and more in terms of who's managing me. I think of the external locus of control is micromanaging of everything you do. And I guess you're talking about choices, but I'm talking about actions too. It's like you're going to do this, and then this is really good for you, and then I'm going to help you with this. And it's somebody else determining pretty much your entire existence, what you do, who you see, what you wear, who cares about what you wear, but like how you're spending all your time. And what we've seen with childhood is that it has gone from a lot more freedom, which is you deciding what to do and you
Yes.
figuring things out, to a lot more somebody else supervising, structuring your day. And what Peter Gray found out and finally published in the Journal of Pediatrics, so that's pretty nifty, is that over the
It's got some
decades,
problems, but I'll leave that for another time.
leave that aside because we're going to talk about this important piece by Peter Gray that we love and we quote all the time.
Peter Gray is great. Pediatrics.
Journal of Pediatrics. No, the American
Yeah.
Academy of Pediatrics has said crazy things like you shouldn't walk out. No child we think
Yeah.
is developmentally able to walk outside alone until age 10, which is like,
Yeah.
remember I said I walked at 5?
Have you ever been to anywhere else in the world?
Right, right, right. Or any other
Yeah.
era.
What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah,
This
yeah.
is this expert psychosis that's just yeah. But anyway,
Right. And
Peter Gray.
also sort of going to the extreme. It's like, well, I think that, 5-year-olds are okay, and you might think 7-year-olds okay, but the American, like, just to be safe, back to litigious culture, let's say 10.
Yeah.
At age 10, you can finally cross your suburban street and go to your friend's house without me walking you there. Anyways, Peter's piece traced uh, basically the exertion of more and more control over kids. And what he said is, as kids um, independence and free play have gone down over the decades, not just since phones, not just since COVID, right? As their
Question
independence,
inspired school plays a big role in this too.
all right, but as
Yeah.
independence and free time, free choice has gone down, and not a lack of responsibility. I mean, just like being a person in the world. And as that went down, the rise has been in anxiety and depression. And the one I think he doesn't talk about that I like to think about now is it's not just anxiety and depression, it feels like passivity. I've been to so
Yes.
many schools and I've been surprised by how dulled out kids are, and I don't think it's just because they're in school. And I know when I go into these classrooms, there's a new person there and everybody gets shy. But I've heard from teachers, and this is not just at one school. It's like, so if you keep hearing about it, maybe it's true, like that a pencil will fall on the ground and the kids will be like,
Who's going to pick that up for me?
Right, right, right.
Mom
Or
and
am I
dad?
allowed to pick it up? Or should I pick it up? Or am I going to be embarrassed? Or what if it drops again? And there's just sort of some sort of evisceration. And I guess it's the evisceration of that internal locus of control that we were talking about, and replaced with this external locus of control. And sometimes I think of childhood looks like it's fun. You know, I'm going to soccer, I'm going to taekwondo, now I'm going to Chuck E. Cheese. And it sometimes feels like there's this exoskeleton of cheer and birthday parties and fun. But finding your way in the forest or coming up with a game or, doing something new or something silly on your own or catching a frog. I mean, and the urban equivalent, whatever that is, catching a roach. All of that, that
Oh,
seems to
God.
have sort of evaporated. And for all the reasons we were talking about at the top of this.
I think so one of the things from Peter's
Hmm.
radical on the school side of things,
He is.
and I'm broadly with him on that. I mean, Acton Academy is closer to Peter.
Hmm.
His kid went to Sudbury, where there's literally like no rules at all.
Yeah,
Like
I went
it's
and visited. Yeah.
and
And I went and visited with Izzy, who was crying when we left. Like,
oh, and I remember we reached out to Sudbury. And I mean, it's a little bit of a cult. Like the response we got back was in the form of something akin to a manifesto. It was kind of strange, but
we should explain that. So the idea behind Sudbury is that there's no grades and no grades, and the kids are innately curious, and they will find things that interest them. And because they're deeply interested, they will pursue them in such a way that they learn everything else along the way. Like if you want to learn all about frogs, you're going to learn about biology, and then you're going to somehow learn math, and maybe you're going to read books about frogs, and pretty soon
yeah,
you're going to be
radically
really good at frogs.
radically child directed.
Hmm.
It's on in the spectrum of child direction. If you said like, okay, typical public school is Prussian prison, and then Catholic school's not too far behind. Montessori, okay, now you've got large blocks of time where you
Hmm.
actually have to do
And
your
age
work,
mixing.
and you're mixed ages. So Maria Montessori, great.
And real world stuff,
Yeah,
like cups are real and
yeah,
you're
physical
actually making the
stuff,
snack.
use of things, yeah,
Yeah.
making your food,
Mhm.
cleaning up, the
Mhm.
work. They call it work from an early age. Acton Academy is like Montessori on steroids, where the adults are not allowed to answer questions or they'll be fired.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's only like 3 guides on the school of 120, and none of them are allowed to answer a question. It's radically Socratic. And then Sudbury is, we don't even have those guides, people. The kids write their
We
own
don't need no stinking
yeah.
guides.
The kids write the Constitution. They run the show. If they don't want to learn anything, they don't. But eventually they will, and we just trust that they will, and it mostly works.
Yeah,
Mostly, but not entirely,
right.
because nothing's perfect. So that's one piece of the puzzle, is the school
Well,
experience.
I'll tell you what Peter talks about school that really, everybody will recognize whether you're sending your kid to. I sent my kid to regular public school, kids to regular public schools.
Yeah, they
Um,
survived anyway.
yeah, and the thing that's different is that the school year is like a month longer
Mhm.
than when I was going to school. The day is long, and then the thing that sort of means that there's unending external locus of control is that after school, instead of having free time, you're generally off to an adult-run activity,
Yeah,
which can be really fun, and you can learn drawing and you can learn soccer, but it is sort of more school. Right? There's an
yeah.
adult showing you what to do and sort of looking at what you're doing and maybe not grading it, but commenting on it. And people always say, like, am I against the everybody gets a trophy culture? That was a question for a long time. Everybody, and it's like I'm against adults being there, because when they're
Yeah.
there, not only will they give a trophy, they'll also say, "Try it this way," or "You guys are arguing. Let me solve this." And
Helicoptering.
well, just it's me too. I mean, when I'm with my kids will tell you this, and they're in their 20s. It's like I'm like, "Don't look at your phone. You're crossing the street." I mean, there's it's inevitable that when an adult is with younger people, maybe most people stop by their 20s, but basically when you're with younger kids, you see them squabbling and wasting time or being mean or doing something risky, and you will jump in. It's just inevitable. So the only solution is to not always be there. You can, it's like, oh, I barely pay attention. It's like, yes, but you're there. They'll come to you when they're annoyed, or they'll come to you when they're hungry, or they'll come to you when they've stubbed a toe. And you have to let them not have you to come to for them to realize, oh, it's not that big a deal. And I can live. And so that makes you have more of an internal locus of control when there isn't always an adult there to outsource your discomfort to.
One of the ways I think about this that I think is deeply connected to your work and to these ideas is this weird thing.
Oh, good.
And I well, I bring it up from time to time in these conversations because um it almost roots my whole ideology.
Oh, boy.
And that is we drum roll please. I don't know what I'm capable of.
Oh, of course.
But that's weird because I who knows me better than me?
No, you never know. I mean, if we're in a famine, you're going to figure out, do you know how to grow potatoes or not, right? I mean, you're going to figure out all sorts of things depending on the circumstances that you're in,
But
which is why it's always good to go a little bit beyond your zone of comfort, because then you find out, oh, I can do this, which is why, let me get back to let grow, the let grow experience, where we're telling the kid you have to go do something new that you haven't done before for one reason or another that you feel like you're ready to do. And then they do it. And it's just, I was just at a school. I was looking at all the kids write their project on a leaf. I rode my bike. It turns out it's easier than I thought. Or I washed the dishes. I learned don't overflow the sink. I mean, everybody is learning when they try something new, and and they're doing it on their own, and they're responsible for something, right?
yeah.
So that's all I'm saying. Give your kids those opportunities, and then they get to see what they are capable of.
Well, and that's the thing that is so miraculous, right? Is that we are this enormously adaptable
Oh, yeah.
creature.
Yeah, no, we
So,
live in Alaska and we live in Sub-Sahara, not me.
and
I live in, 75 to 76 degrees, but other people
but
manage to live other places.
but even just like our capability, like what we're capable of intellectually, skills and crafts and all the things that constitute like human life in society.
Mhm.
And you, unless you piece by piece teach yourself, train yourself that you're going to have to survive what I like to think of as the creative sequence.
Ooh,
So the creative sequence sounds something like this, and it's out there in kind of meme form, but as a producer, I know this painfully well.
okay,
I have an idea.
okay,
I think it's going to be awesome.
uh-huh,
And then I try to start making that thing. And pretty quickly I realize, damn, this is hard. This is harder than I thought. And then you realize this point happens where it's not good. You
right?
say, this sucks.
Yeah,
This isn't gonna work. And then often you
yeah,
say, I think I suck. I'm not good at this.
yeah,
I'm an idiot.
yeah,
Why did I do this? Why did I now everybody's gonna
mhm,
think I'm a complete
mhm,
moron.
mhm,
But if you stay with it, usually you'll get back to, hey, this is actually better than I thought it was going to be. This is actually working out. Oh,
mhm,
I solved a couple of those other problems
mhm,
now.
mhm,
And you might even come back and get to, oh, this was actually awesome. It was
or
actually
fun,
better than I
or
thought.
I can't wait to do it again.
And that
Yeah,
sequence you
yeah,
have to experience and
right. You have to go
survive.
down, right.
It is the hero's journey. It
Mhm,
is the going off into the wilderness and facing the dragon and coming back a changed warrior. But it happens
with one
so,
leg.
like every time in every project. And it's like it doesn't even matter even when you're expert and you know exactly your field.
Mhm.
It's still you're doing something new every new day. And how can it not be that the sooner we get those experiences, the more functional and free we are going to be as people. Um, you
I
write for
agree.
well, you write for Reason Magazine, which is a libertarian organization, and I think
Mhm.
that this is a very these are the seeds of being able to live in a free society. Is the way I that was actually this show. If it has
Theme.
a theme, it's
Mhm.
how do we raise and learn ourselves kids that can thrive in a free society and also want to keep it free. Because
Yeah,
I think one of the
yeah, yeah.
problems that happens, and I'd like to hear how you think about this, um, is that when you are so anxious, when you feel so incapable,
You look to somebody else.
where's mom and dad? Okay, I'm now out in the world and I'm an adult. Maybe my parents have passed away. Well, where's the replacement mom and dad? It's going to be government. It's going to be other authorities. You're not going to look inward to yourself, to your community, to your friends. You're going to look up and say, who can help me with this? Because I know I can't do it. How do you think about that?
I think about it in a very similar way. And I'm going to use this to sort of pivot to an experience that we've taken out of kids' lives that I think inures us to that, which is free play. I mean, we really haven't talked about that at all. But in free play, when somebody isn't organizing you, everything has to, you have to build basically a society. And you have to say you want to start a Foursquare game, something as simple as that. You have to get kids together. You have 5 kids. Who's going to go in last? How are you going to decide who comes in? Was the ball on the line or was it out? You have to argue. You have to figure it out together. And then you get bored and you say, let's do it with 2 balls. And so you've come up with an entirely new system and that didn't work. Let's do it with a balloon. Oh, that's really fun. Let's do it again tomorrow. Endlessly, every second of play is coming up with a plan, seeing if it works, getting buy-in. That's democracy, right? That's
Right.
entrepreneurship. Like, can I get other people to do my idea? Do they think it's great? Do they have a better idea? How do I get along with people? I'm a jerk. Nobody wants to play with me. I better stop being a jerk. And every time that a school has started doing this, and I was just at a school on Thursday, I was watching all the kids play. There were two, I mean, I don't even know why the kids were in 2 different groups, but there was a group playing soccer over here and a group, I think, playing soccer over here, all these different ages. And the lady who runs the school said that when she proposed this, having all the ages together and not having the adults, she used to have regular recess where each teacher was assigned a zone that they were in charge of. It sounds like, the panopticon or something like
Yeah.
KGB.
Again,
Right.
the prison analogy for school is always in play.
Right, right, right. But it's not in play.
Right.
In play, it's not there. So she said, no, I want all the kids to be meeting, to be playing together. And the teacher's like, no, we want to decide when our kids go out and what are, how are the third graders going to get along with the kindergartners? And she said,
Troll.
just wait and see. And she said it took a while for them not to interfere. But then when I was out there, it had already been going on for a couple months. And the teachers are all clumped together because they're having more fun because they're talking to each other. And then the kids have organized themselves and they were really little kids up to the bigger kids. And it we are hardwired to make culture, to make things happen, to have fun, to play, and to create, right? And you're wondering what happens when we take that away from people and they look, well, somebody else solved this problem for me. Somebody else tell me what I should be doing. Somebody else tell me, was this good or bad? It's like, no, in play, all of that becomes activated. And then you do it every day and you've made your friends and you've made your games and there hasn't been an adult who is always the authority that you turn to. So without play, you are taking all that practice out of childhood of getting ready for democracy, adulthood, responsibility, and freedom. So you got to give it back.
One of the examples of the culture shift that I personally look to is the rise of the complex Lego set that's
Oh,
really just a
yes, yes,
model.
yes,
So I
yes.
have all the Legos I've ever
Grr.
had since
Yes.
I was a little
They're in a
boy.
giant box.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I'm a little. There's a little OCD in that they're grouped. They're grouped in
By color.
Ziplocs by color.
Oh my God. Okay. Right. No
but
comment.
but um, I would get the set.
Mm-hmm.
I'd build the set with the instructions, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'd learn some cool things,
Right. You can make a
and then
hinge.
pretty soon I'd smash it,
Yeah.
never to be rebuilt that way again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd build my own crazy things, or I'd
An
try to.
emergent order.
Yes, I'd build. I mean, actually, the Lego movie, the original, the first Lego
I went to
movie,
see it against my will.
is a
Mm-hmm.
celebration of free play with this toy that is this free play toy. And
God, is that what it was about? Because I fell asleep. Oh my God.
oh no, you missed a
Oh my
great
God,
movie.
it's so
It's the most
terrible. My kid
emergent
was
order
like
movie
6. I
ever.
had to go.
We have a great short from our Econ Pop series about the Lego movie, so you can just watch that in your
Okay, that's
just
great.
with
Sounds
Andrew
painless.
Heaton.
Right. Oh, I
Um,
love him. Yeah.
so there's one other piece of the puzzle that we haven't talked about,
Mm-hmm.
and that is I saw a story on Twitter recently
Mm.
of a woman
Mm.
who
Mm-hmm.
had
I can tell you the story.
some
Georgia lady, are we talking about
I
that?
think so.
Oh my God, yes.
So you tell the story,
I'll tell you the story
and you know
and I'll
where I'm
tell you the
going with this
lessons. Yes.
in the American legal system. So lay it all out, because this is the piece of the puzzle that isn't just about we as parents making decisions and retraining ourselves and our kids. This is
Right.
about our legal system that tells you, oh, what are you going to do? Some free range stuff? How about prison for you?
Right. She actually didn't end up spending the night in prison. So Georgia mom, Brittany Patterson, 4 kids. Oldest is 16, youngest is 10, about to turn 11. His name is Soren. Mom has to take her older son, to the doctor's on an afternoon. Actually, I can tell you it was October 30th. And her younger son's going to come with them, but it's time to leave and he's not there. And she tries to call him and his phone is dead. And she decides, okay, I'm just going to leave without him. Look, my dad is home, i.e., the kid's grandpa is home. I live near my mom, my two sisters. Everybody's within 2-minute walking distance. And my son likes to play in the woods. So either he'll be at home with grandpa or he'll be playing in the woods or he could go to one of the relatives. I don't care. It's going to be fine. Drives the kid to the doctor, gets a call. So instead of staying home, Soren decided to walk to town, less than a mile walk, and the town has 370 people in it. Okay, Mineral Bluff, Georgia. Somebody sees him outside, a child alone. Oh my God, it's like seeing, an escaped lemur from the zoo. What's it doing here? There shouldn't be a child, right? So this passerby goes up to him and says, "Are you okay?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm fine. Where's your mom?" "Oh, she's off at the doctor's office." Like, okay. So that should be enough, right? He's fine,
Right.
right? Nothing bad is happening to him. He's not running into the street. He's not on fire, right? There's nothing chasing him. He's just a kid walking. And actually, he'd done something very sweet, which is he'd gone to the gas station and talked to his friend's grandma who works there. I mean, that's sort of heartening, right? Um, so the sheriff, who's a lady, calls the mom, whose name is Brittany Patterson, and says, "Do you know where your son is?" She said, "Yeah, he's at home. He's in the woods." "No, no, no, he's outside walking," says the sheriff.
Oh
And she
no.
said, "How did he get here?" asked the sheriff. And the mom says, "Well, I think you know as well as I do. He must have walked from house, right? We live right near there." And she said, "Well, he shouldn't be doing that. Anything terrible could have happened." And this is the crux
Of
of the
course.
matter, because just because you can imagine something terrible happening doesn't mean there's any likelihood of it happening, and we can't
How dare you
adjudicate.
drive a car?
Right,
You might die in an accident.
right,
It's like, yeah, we do all of these things all
right.
of the time.
Stairs in your house. Don't you know how many children fall downstairs?
You know the
Right,
best way to
right,
stay safe? Stop breathing now.
right, right,
Then
right.
you'll be safe forever.
I always say you should puree all your food. But anyway, so the sheriff takes the kid home. The grandpa says, "You should have told me," whatever. Mom gets home. She reads him the riot act. "Hey, tell grandpa when you're leaving the house." Okay. But she figures that's it. No. 6:30 at night, there's the sheriff again with another sheriff with her. It's like, and the mom said she's a realtor, so she's talking on the phone. She's like, "Hang on a second." It's like, "No."
Of course, of
So she has to
course.
put down the phone, come outside, and you can see the footage. It's all over the internet now. The officer says, "Put your hands behind your back and turn around." And she says, "Am I being arrested?" And the sheriff says, "Yes." And she says, "For what?" She said, "Reckless conduct. The reckless conduct of not knowing where your kid was for an hour." And they take her, they take her purse, they take her phone, they take her to the police station, fingerprinted, body scan, mugshot, and an orange jumpsuit. I don't know why they're always orange, but she gets an orange jumpsuit. And they expected her to spend the night. They gave her a bedroll, but they forgot that she was wearing an Apple Watch. And so she calls her mother-in-law and says, I'm at the county jail. Come get me. Somebody bail me out." And so the relatives quickly come there and she's bailed out before she spends the night in jail. But they were going to have her spend the night in jail because for an hour, she didn't know that her son had decided to take a walk like, I don't know, a human being. So the outrage on her behalf, and I have to say I broke the story in Reason, and it has gone around the world. I mean, it's legend already. But
Because
the
like I'm struggling, not I'm grinding my teeth
grind
in
away.
absolute rage. I'm
Yeah.
like, can we put the officers in jail for a long
A
time
lot of
in this?
people are asking about
Like,
that.
can we
Yeah, yeah.
criminalize this?
So here's what happened. Um, the next day she was visited by Child Protective Services,
Right.
and then they wrote up a quote unquote safety plan. And safety plans are really interesting, and you should have somebody named Diane Redleaf come and speak to you about them. She's been fighting for parents' rights against overweening government systems for a long time. But a safety plan is something that Child Protective Services asks you to sign, and it outlines certain things that you're supposed to do. And in her case, um, from now on, anytime she left the home, she would have to let all 4 of her children know, "I am leaving the home now." 16-year-old, 15-year-old, and Soren has since turned 11. Um, which I think she probably did, but if she, suddenly realizes, "Oh my God, the
We need
pizza's
the
ready."
government to tell us these things
Right.
because we're not living in a completely fascist state. At all.
He said. So A, let your kids know every time you leave the house. B, assign a, and this gets me because it's not a real word, a safety person. Assign a safety person to your 11-year-old. And that would be somebody who is always aware of where he is and is always, accountable. Like, where is he? Oh, I can tell you, he's exactly there. But the thing that I found most dystopian was that she was also required to download onto her phone a tracking app that would allow her to track her son 24/7. And she had to download it in front of the case manager who would make sure that it was on her phone. And so first of all, the incredible just effrontery of, you couldn't possibly do this on your own and we couldn't possibly trust you. But the thing about tracking that's so interesting is that what the government was doing was saying you must track your kid. And you might recall that until the iPhone came along, the only people we tracked were
Criminals.
on work release, felons on work
Yeah.
release from prison. And so they had their little ankle monitor, right?
Right.
Not even so little, I've seen them. And, for the
Now
prisoner,
we have this.
well, here's the deal. For the prisoner with the ankle monitor, it's better than being in prison, but
Freedom.
it's not freedom. And so what they were saying to her is, you must be his warden and he must be your prisoner. And, if a parent chooses to track a kid, that's up to them. But being told you must track a kid is being told that you must not treat him as somebody you trust, right? You're not even allowed to show him that you trust him. You're not allowed to trust him. You're a monitor. You are a warden. And so that struck me as, it doesn't strike anyone else, but that struck me as the worst part of this, that you were interfering with the parent-child relationship that should be based on, I believe in you. I trust you. I told you not to do that, and now you did it. And there'll be some consequences, but I'll trust you anew. You're never allowed to trust anymore. The government says trust is for maybe New Zealanders, but not in America.
Well, when you look at the behavior of governments with regard to COVID, I would say that not New Zealand, because
Oh
that was
yeah,
a prison
I was trying to
planet.
think of another place,
You can't.
whatever,
There's
Zambia,
so
someplace else.
so this there is, and we've had interactions on email and otherwise about this over the years. One of which being around changes to the state laws as they pertain to what is called neglect.
Right.
So just talk about that really
Mm-hmm.
quickly. Like what is, because this is a system thing that if you are
Mm-hmm.
watching, if you want to get active in a local political matter that actually has a big impact on your family life,
Mm-hmm.
being aware of this, becoming someone who supports it being
Mm-hmm.
reformed,
Mm-hmm.
it's a big deal. It's like a huge deal. It can
Right.
save families from being ripped apart by
Right.
the state.
All right. So first of all, let me say that I always say I'm the Nancy Grace of these stories because she would just go
They all
on and
come
on.
to you.
They all come to me, and it starts seeming like they're happening all the time everywhere. And thank goodness they're not. And if they were happening all the time everywhere, just like any news, it'd become boring. But this is a real outrage and an egregious case of government oversight, but overstepping. But you're right. We have at Let Grow. We have changed the neglect laws, or helped change. We don't do it ourselves, but we helped pass what we call reasonable childhood independence laws in so far 8 states. And the first one was in Utah, and then came Texas, Oklahoma, Virginia, Connecticut,
Oh, Connecticut. So a blue
Illinois,
state. Illinois. Wow.
Illinois, right,
Okay, how about that?
Montana, and Virginia. Did I say Virginia?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it again because Virginia was really amazing. I mean, remember that that's a state where there's a lot of contention about what are parents' rights. But
Well,
this
and
is
and there was it Kim? I'm forgetting her name now.
Kim Brooks.
Kim Brooks.
Yeah,
She
she was
had a
arrested.
horrible experience that she wrote about
Yeah,
in Virginia while
yeah.
not being a resident there, where
She
she
was
went.
visiting her parents. She's
She
from there.
visited her parents. She does the thing that every reasonable person has done with kids, which is, oh, it's not super hot. I got to run into Target to get some headphones for my kid before we get back on the thing. Some
Person.
person the who decides they're going to be a good Samaritan and stand off the back and
Hmm.
call the cops on her, but not make
Not actually
themselves,
watch over the
not
kid.
watch the
Right,
kid,
right,
not have any
right.
courage and approach her directly.
Hmm.
No, this is so often, it seems to be this way too. It's these busybodies who don't want to be bothered by having to put in a police report or be named. They just call. Oh, I care. the disgust in my body language is
Yes, and your
disgust
voice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it's disgusting. These are like the
So
society destroyers, as far as I'm concerned.
I
Well intended. Oh, they're so well
I do
intended.
agree that it would be way better if you're concerned about a kid in a car, wait there for a few minutes, because 9 times out of 10, the parent is running an errand and it's much easier and some ways safer to keep them in the car. More kids die in parking lots than die in parked cars. Did you know that? So
This
it's one
doesn't
of these,
surprise me.
right.
Yeah.
So, a digression for a second. I think the reason that so many people are calling these days is two things. One is that we're so used to being told if you see something, say something, and there's a kid outside and there's a kid in the
Hmm.
car, and isn't that dangerous? I might as well call. I think I'm being safe. But also, we have phones. I mean, until
So we can
everybody,
do it. We
so
can
we
do
do
it.
it because if I, if I saw a kid in a car and I had to, finish my own shopping and go home and then call 911, I would never do that. I would never remember that I'd seen a kid in a car or seen a kid walking along the side of the street. But because we have phones, it's just immediate. See something, say something. And we haven't been told what the something is. It's like a something is not just a child outside. A something should be something dangerous and really, truly egregious as opposed to a kid.
I think it's an indication of like a disintegration of a certain civil society ethos, which is to say, I, if I'm going to really be part of the community, I'm going to be part of the community. So I'm going to treat you like a person
Right, and
and
also it's again, it's
engage.
and the thing we were talking about
It's
before is that
drive-by caring. It's
it's not only
drive-by
drive-by
compassion.
caring, it's also let's bring in the authorities.
Hmm.
The
Yeah,
subway the subway here used to have a sign that drove me crazy. They don't have it lately, maybe they've evolved. That said, if you see a sick passenger, do not attempt to help them. Call an MTA,
yeah,
Manhattan Transit
yeah,
Authority,
right.
or a police officer. I'm like, hello. But also it's like do not be a fellow human.
Right.
Do not assume that you could possibly help. Do not have any compassion well up in you, or if you do, please, outsource it to someone else. But
It's,
anyways, I wanted to
yeah,
tell you about the laws.
yes,
So we've gotten these laws passed, and as you can see, it is red states and blue states and purple
that's
states.
great.
And the law is called a Reasonable Childhood Independence Law. And what it says is that it just defines neglect better because in so many states, neglect is defined as proper, a lack of proper supervision. It's like, well, that's pretty open-ended
Yeah.
because what I think of, I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone. You wouldn't let them do it till 15. Okay.
What's
But
proper?
what's proper? So our definition is that neglect is when you put your kid in obvious, serious, and I would add sort of likely danger, serious danger, obvious danger, not anytime you see a child unsupervised or anytime you take your eyes off your kid. And this is passed with bipartisan sponsorship in almost all the states and unanimously in 5 of them, including Virginia, because anywhere you are on any political spectrum, you don't want to have your rational, reasonable, loving, or sometimes seat of the pants and not perfect parenting decisions second guessed by the state.
The one of the things that I tend to go towards in thinking about why this has happened
Hmm.
is that it's wealth disease.
Yeah.
And I'm going to offer why I think that might not be a sufficient hypothesis. But first,
Hmm.
so what am I saying? Um, we are a wealthy society. Wealthy societies also have fewer kids,
Hmm.
and we don't lose as many kids to. I mean, like
Hmm.
it used to be. I think if you go back to 1950, like a quarter of children born in the United States wouldn't live to see the age 15. I looked
No,
at.
that's wrong.
I forget. There was
But
a
it was
number.
like 4 times more
It was
than now would die before they were age of
yeah,
5.
I forget. Yeah,
Right.
it was like there
Right.
was a stat. I'm not remembering it
Hmm.
perfectly, but it was
Hmm.
like substantially
Right.
higher in child mortality.
Right.
So we now have fewer precious, fragile teacups with more wealth, more time. Parents today spend more time, something like 8 hours a week or something
Right.
more
Well,
with their kids than we used to. So for all the talk of mom and dad are working and No, we're actually spending more time with our kids than we used to.
Right, which is also why the Surgeon General just issued that report saying that parents are going crazy.
Oh, I mocked that report
Well,
mercilessly.
I don't think you should mock it because I think it's true. Because if
I
you
don't want to
have,
hear him tell me anything. Shut up. That
but
was
if
my
he's
mockery.
right about this one, I mean, really, what we're doing is we demand so much of parents that they really that we're going to arrest you because you didn't walk your kid, a mile to the town of 370 to get a popsicle and back.
Even
That
when
is going to drive you crazy.
he might be right, he's part of the problem. I'd rather him go away.
But he's right on this.
Nine
Okay.
times out of 10, he's telling me something stupid. He's putting a warning label on things. Or like in California is the best at that, putting warning labels on buildings. Don't eat the
Really?
building. It's got cancerous things
See,
in
you
the
shouldn't
building.
eat the building. That's right. Right. Thank
Anyway,
you. Right.
so okay, wealthier society, more sensitive, more concerned about a smaller and smaller set of concerns that still feel big because that's the way humans are. Except the Japanese still let their 3-year-olds run around the
As we all
entire
know
city of
from Netflix,
Tokyo.
yes. Right.
The Danes throw their kids out into these danger
That's
playgrounds
why they
and
call it
parks.
danger.
The Germans.
Joke.
There's wealthy societies that haven't become
It's true.
lunatics. Do you have any
Yeah, that's
way
interesting. Yeah.
so
Um,
it belies the idea that wealth necessarily gives rise to
yeah, that is interesting.
safetyism psychosis, and I don't know what the answer is. It's weird. We're the frontier people.
We were. Yeah.
Now we're like a bunch of,
Right.
as
We're now gonna strap
uh
you into your wagon.
her first name's escaping me.
Park your wagon.
Murano, a nation
Hera
of
Morano.
wimps. Hera
Yeah.
Murano, a nation of wimps, she
Right.
wrote
Right. She
in
did.
like I think it was
Before mine.
99.
Sh uh,
Or maybe
whenever she wrote
it
hers, and
was it
Frank
was super
Peretti wrote Paranoid Parenting
yeah.
around then too.
So
Yeah, they're so smart.
and she saw this rise in this
Mhm.
mental health crisis
Mhm.
calling at the university. She got on like an email list of the
Mhm.
university mental health clinics. I didn't even know where the mental health clinic was at Penn State. And I don't think I knew anyone that knew where it was. I'm not saying that there isn't a reason to have that or that you shouldn't know where it is, but
No, so I'm interested, you're right. Like, what is different about, I mean, Japan, I can sort of say that there has always been this tradition, and maybe the television show helped. The television show that's now on Netflix called Old Enough has been running for 30 years in Japan, where it's called My First Errand. And it is a delightful rite of passage when your kid runs their first errand, whether they're going to get the rice or the meat or, meet daddy at work. And what I love about it is that as you see these really little kids, age 5 and 3, going to the market, sometimes they're crying and nobody stops the film. Nobody stops it from happening. Oh, this is too much for the kid. Oh, look, he's crying. Oh, that's traumatic. Don't do that to him. Instead, there's sort of a laugh track, but there's also sort of an oh
yeah,
track.
yeah.
And the
Cut to the room full of Japanese people all talking about it as they watch it, kind of
Right,
thing.
right, right. But they go, oh, look. And instead of thinking he can't handle it, the assumption is he's going to be fine. Let him start going on the errand. And that's, I have to say, it's just like the let grow experience. Once you see the kid doing this, first of all, they get interested. It's like, wait a minute, where's the store? Or how do I find the right kind of beef or whatever? And so that's woven into their sense of who they are, is that we're the country that sends the 5-year-olds in their little hats off to kindergarten, and everybody knows if there's a kid wearing a little yellow hat, that means it's their first year walking to school and we'll help them. And when I've told people about that here, they say, if they wear a yellow hat, it's like saying, predator, here I am. I'm not one of those unfun kids who's in first grade. I'm a prime, target. So it's back to that worst first thinking here. We've institutionalized or put in the water this idea that if you're not thinking of the worst case scenario all the time, there's something wrong with you. That's why I'm talking to you today. There's something wrong with me because I'm not thinking that way.
I wonder if one of the things about America that might have led us down this lunatic path
Yeah.
is that we are kind of a uniquely progressive country. And I mean that not in the political progressive sense, but in the land of opportunity, the place where you go, you leave the old world behind,
Mm-hmm.
you leave your old ways behind.
Mm-hmm.
It's new, 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 new,
Yeah.
bigger, better, faster. Everything's new. We aren't a blood and soil nation. We don't have hundreds and hundreds of years of the same peoples doing the same things. We're this
Mm-hmm.
super diverse melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
that's reinventing ourselves all the time
Yeah.
and like trailblazing on culture for better and I think in this case worse.
Okay.
And so we
I don't
don't
know how the
we
trailblazingness
because
ends
what
up
I
being
think
safety.
and off camera I was telling you that I'm finding myself more and more in pre-modern
Right.
in certain respects.
Hmm.
And I think
They're weird.
this is kind of it. Modernity says leave the old ways behind. Now we're on to something new.
Hmm.
But sometimes the old ways are good.
That's what we say in my house all the time. Old ways are best.
And the old ways of like get the hell out of the house and
Yeah.
everybody did that, therefore all the kids are there and it's
Right.
fun
Right. Right.
is better. And and so I think in these older, more homogenous, maybe more in a kind of small c culturally conservative or conserving of their ways
Right.
societies,
Right.
they've
Right.
they've managed to have iPhones and have cars and have wealth
Right.
and still keep these things that turned out maybe even accidentally to be
Hmm.
essential. It's a I'm making that up on the fly a little
Yeah, I
bit,
don't
but
know. I don't know. I mean, we were already a melting pot culture of people from all over the world in the 50s, 60s, 70s when we were sending the kids outside to play. And by the 70s, they weren't giant families either. So I don't see where being modern and at the forefront of things automatically means more supervision and more catastrophizing. I don't, I think it might have something to do with something else, which is optimizing, which is when we're with our kids and taking them to classes and activities and they're wearing the uniforms and they're being coached by somebody who is considered pretty good at what they do and they're stratified by levels, you're in the A group at the sevens and maybe you'll get to travel soccer. Maybe all that has to do with not safety, but like, let's make sure that kids don't waste any single second of their time because we can. We have experts who can teach them more about music and more about soccer and more about help them with their homework.
yeah.
And we are in a competitive culture and maybe increasingly competitive. Maybe everybody's afraid that their kids aren't going to make it to the
To a brand name college,
well, well,
don't want to miss your test,
yeah,
this
you
and
don't.
that.
I mean, we can make fun of that, but you do want your kids to have a way to make a living and succeed, even if they don't have to go to Princeton to make that living. I keep bragging on Princeton. Um,
Justifiable.
yeah, maybe it's not. I have nothing
Oh
against
no, it's
Princeton.
justifiable.
Okay, not the
And
Penn. Right, right,
Columbia
right,
and
right,
Penn and Harvard and all the,
right.
you know.
In any event, the point is that rather than having kids waste time, we think that we can put them in something that's better and more, that's just going to get them further, right? And we think it's going to enhance their lives. Oh, they're going to have all these lessons, so they'll be more interested in art and soccer or whatever. So it could be the money plus the optimization plus the worry that if we're not optimizing them, everybody else. It's like everybody gets SAT prep now. So
It's a
if you
zero
don't do
sum
that,
game
right,
mentality.
right. So it could be that. I mean, it could be like, doesn't Denmark have like just zillions of gallons of oil, right? So they're going to be okay.
Norway definitely
Oh, maybe
does.
it's Norway. Okay.
Denmark might have some oil. I know Norway has a lot,
What
but yeah,
kills me is the idea that kids are wasting their time if they're not in some organized activity or that they're in danger. They're in danger of real danger that somebody's going to kidnap them or they're in danger of falling behind. And so therefore we have to put them in constant adult run activities. And the inability of this culture to see that when kids are just noodling around or arguing or doing things that are silly just because they're fun, that is learning. Nobody sees learning unless it's with a capital L and a trademark and somebody is guaranteeing that your kid is going to get ahead because they're getting a lesson. So maybe it has to do with the fact that we live in a wealthy country that has made everything except free time expensive, and therefore it seems more important and more valuable.
I think that's a pretty good hypothesis. I think that there's something that is happening now that cuts in a lot of directions. Some of them are not great. Some of them, in this case, I think could be good.
Okay.
And that is the collapse in trust in all of our experts.
Oh,
So,
hmm.
we
Wait, all of our experts except us.
except me and you.
Right, right,
I don't
right,
know
right.
what I'm an expert
Right,
in
right.
besides like making videos, but
That's good.
you know,
Yeah.
um COVID, higher ed. There's a whole bunch of things. It's an empirical fact, or it's a survey sentiment fact that trust in our
Wait,
institutions.
empirical fact is the
Well,
same as a survey
it's
sentiment?
not. It's not. Well, empirical, as in broad-based surveys suggest,
Yeah.
point to a collapse in trust in
Yeah.
education, higher ed, institutional science, government, basically all the stuff. All
Mhm.
the people that are supposed to be the authority figures we look up to. I think, love it or hate it, the election of Donald Trump in a lot of ways is like giving a big middle finger to the expert managerial class in this country.
Mhm.
There's a there's a downside to that because there is some expertise that is good. I want a neurosurgeon who's an expert to work on my brain.
Right.
I want my Toyota dealer's mechanic to have worked on a lot of Toyotas and know how to fix it and not screw me over or break it. So expertise isn't inherently bad, but
It's
the
good.
culture of trusting experts seems like it's gotten a lot of deserved dings. And, do you think that this could actually help us on this
Mm.
front?
My God, that's a really hard thing to even think about.
It's a
The
little
collapse of
macro.
expert culture.
Oh,
I
the current Dr. Spock book. I'm
Wait, the
gonna
current Dr. Spock books are written by my friend from college.
maybe they're good.
I'm
I'm
sure they're
just saying.
good. Right, right.
But you know what
Shout out to Robert Needleman.
you
Yeah,
called out that there's this trust the experts,
yeah,
appeal to authority culture. I
yeah.
do think some of that's declining.
Yeah, there's a little more scrappiness. I think that's true. But I think when parents are thinking about the experts, they're generally not thinking about this giant expert somewhere that we don't even know. I think they're thinking like, my kid's swim coach says it'd be better if he does it 5 days a week than 3 days a week. So maybe I have to do it. I mean, there's a lot of individualized suggestions for all of our kids. The teacher says he needs speech therapy or Kumon, and
Yeah.
and we go ahead with
He
that.
might be dyslexic or he has
Oh
auditory
my God,
processing
my kids have been through
disorders.
all of that, so I
Auditory
get it. I listen,
processing.
you listen. I mean, my one kid had speech therapy for years and years and years. So, um, and how would you not? I mean, the thing is that there's a lot more to be expert about. Like, I don't know about auditory processing, and I don't know if the diphthongs are being, done with the tongue at the front of the mouth or the back of the mouth. And so, if somebody knows about that and they say that they have a better solution for your kid, who's not going to want that?
I think it seems like a decent rule of thumb is the narrower the subject,
Yeah.
with the clearer the cause and effect that you can demonstrate, the
Yeah.
more likely that expert is not a complete crackpot. And the wider
You
the
mean like
like
the world is going to end tomorrow? Those are the crackpots. I think you're right.
but
Right.
but I mean there's
Right.
a lot of crackpottery out there. There's a lot of claims,
Right.
especially in
I
health and
took a
in
crack pottery
psychology.
class. Right.
Uh, you know, uh, so much of what we've talked about and what I think can feel like some as just like plain old common sense
I
from
think
not
that's
that
all I
long
am.
ago.
Oh my God. I'm like the Department of Homeland Sanity. That's me. Right.
As
People
we
always say, like, wow, you make a lot of sense. I'm like, because I'm sensible. That's like it. That's my stock and trade. I make sense. Right. I don't have anything better than that. Right.
um, are you optimistic that we might be heading in a better direction on this in our culture in this country? Or do you feel like this is
Uh,
still
you know,
a constant war of attrition of psychosis and safetyism?
those are my choices.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. Okay.
Going better.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it could be getting worse. So I'm at least
It's
giving you
it
better
I
or
do feel all
running in
right, so I'll tell you
place.
what's worse, and then I'll tell you what's better.
Okay.
Worse is that with phones, there's very little opportunity for parents and children to separate. And the easiest example I can give of this is that there was once an article I read about a mom who loved her childhood. She would go to the park, not the park, she'd go to the stream, and she wanted to give that same sense of wonder and excitement and interest to her own child. So she wanted her own child to be able to go to the stream. And she said, and thank God now I gave her a phone so she can. And she said, and here's why it was so good. One time my daughter was going to this vaunted stream on her bike, and the bike chain fell off. And that way she could call my husband, and he came over and fixed it. So I feel reassured that my kid can have my childhood. And I'm thinking that is the opposite of your childhood, because first of all, you were alone. Secondly, you knew that your parents trusted you to be alone. Thirdly, if your bike chain fell off, you would have to figure it out. You would either, carry the bike home or hide it in the bushes and hitchhike or figure out how to put the bike chain back on, something frankly I don't know how to do.
Mm.
But what you had in your childhood was a chance to really become a human, right? Not just summon the concierge to come and help you. And so that disturbs me because without the parent seeing that the kid was fine without you, even though her bike chain fell off, and without the kid saying, I'm fine without my parent, even though my bike chain fell off, there's no chance for the parent to develop this trust, this win, like, I trust you, you can handle things,
You
because
know,
there's never a chance.
this is I had this thought earlier in our conversation, and I'm glad you came to this story because
Mhm.
there's an invisible force in this. It's something like what in the insurance business is called moral hazard, which is that even if I don't act on it,
Oh, yeah.
the fact
That,
that it's there changes my incentives and my behavior in ways that are subtle and profound.
I agree.
And that is really hard. And look, I'm guilty of it too. Like my son's had a phone, and
Mhm.
I mean, I can literally pull up Find My right now and see his head
There
in
he is in
Rome,
the Vatican, right?
and and that
Why is he in the Vatican?
why wouldn't you be in Nevada? But the that is the knowledge of that. It's an invisible safety net,
I'm so glad you said this. Yes.
and I don't think we can underestimate the
My
way
favorite topic.
this
Yes. Yes, yes,
changes
yes.
how you act and the things you think you should do or that you might need to do. There's one other example, and then I'll let you jump in because I know you're bouncing off the walls to jump in. And that is,
No walls.
I think the econ idea is called the Schelling effect,
Mm.
and it's basically that it's somewhat the inverse, but it plays out the same. Uh, Helmets cause more injury.
Yeah.
So in American football, you have higher incidence of concussions than in rugby in Britain.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that is
Okay.
because when you have the helmet on, you hit harder.
Wow.
UFC has less fatal injury than boxing because getting punched with a bare fist, you don't get that many hits. But if you're Mike Tyson with those soft, squishy ones, you're getting
Oh, I never
pummeled.
thought of them as being soft and squishy.
Well,
Interesting. Right.
relative to
That's why they
bone.
wear it. Oh, that's so interesting.
And
Okay.
so it's sort of the inverse, but it has the same thing. These things that
Hmm.
are meant to be protective change what we do. It's not the same action, it's not the same activity anymore.
Yeah. Hadn't thought about boxing one iota. Um, I do think that we keep not thinking about what it means to grow up under constant supervision or surveillance. And it is huge. And eh, this is a totally non-winning argument for me because there's nobody, including you apparently, who's going to turn off, find my iPhone or, dump Life 360 because they think, oh, I really want more independence for my kid. So it's people love these apps. But when parents say, "It's okay because I barely ever look at it," it's like, but the fact that you could at any point is what makes a difference. And I've talked to some kids about this, and I actually want to talk to more. So it's Lenore at letgrow.org if you're like under 18 and above 13 and want to talk to me about being tracked. Um, that one of the frustrating things about being tracked is, first of all, um, that your parents could watch you at any time, but also that you don't get to prove that you are becoming a responsible young adult. And one kid said, like, if I don't go to a party, it's because I said I wouldn't go to a party. But now my parents can think I didn't go to the party because, of course, they could track me and they would know if I was at the party. So, how do you ever prove that you are trustworthy? And we were talking before about the wind beneath our wings, and somebody who believes in you is somebody who trusts you. And to know
It's
that
trust but verify at all times in real time.
right, and we know that when Reagan said that about the Soviet Union, it wasn't because he trusted them,
Right.
right? It's because he wanted to verify. And so there's something really different about growing up knowing that you really have no privacy or freedom. But I realize that most people feel like the way they can let their kids do anything, like the way the mom let the kid go to the stream, was because the kid was carrying a phone, and it has become like just a truth that is known by all, that if you're carrying a phone, somehow you're safe. And last year I was talking to a kid who was about to get his first phone, um, or a watch. And it was because he was going off to middle school. And I said, and he said that my mom said to talk to you and ask which watch to get. And I said, well, why do you think you need one? And he said, well, what if I have to get in touch with my mom? I said, well, what if you did, And he said, well, I need it just for safety. I was like, what do you mean? She says, well, like, what if I'm like lying in the street bleeding? And I'm like, it's too late for the watch. you know I mean, there's really, it's just become this, it's talismanic, and yet it changes the relationship between you and your parents and you and the world, because now, instead of seeing the world as a place that you can go and be okay in, it's a place you can go and be okay in if somebody is watching over you all the time. And then I saw him, and he's
It's the
wearing a watch
brave new
now.
world.
Well, but it's anyways, it's something disturbing to me, but it is part of the world. And I am grateful when parents do let their kids do more. And if the watch is the only way they're going to get to do it, I in a way that's better than nothing. It probably is better than nothing. But here's what I wanted to say that gives me hope.
Please.
So, Parents Magazine has been my bête noire since I let my kid ride the subway. Is this crazy? And they're always coming up with, when I was talking about the expert culture, really what I wanted to do was just show you a stack of Parents Magazines. It's like, is your laundry hamper dangerous? How could you spend a day in the, they once had a big 5-page article, how to spend a fun day outside in the park. It's like,
I wonder
what
if
would,
you can count the number of
right.
heterosexual dads who've read that on more than one hand.
Yeah,
Parents
yeah, right,
Magazine.
right,
I'm
right,
gonna.
right, right. Right. It's
I
not,
digress.
parents, like
It's
which parent
Parents
are we talking
Magazine.
about? Yeah,
Well, we
yeah,
know
yeah.
which parent we're
I
talking.
think I think in The Simpsons they had like Worried Mother magazine. She was buying a copy of Worried Mother
The honest.
magazine.
Yeah, this is like
Right.
that's like the what it would be called if it was honest.
Right, right, right. But
Gag.
so I have to say, so in the wake of this Brittany Patterson story, they wrote a story and they quoted me, and I was saying what I always say, but they quoted other people saying what I always say. And that was very exciting, because it was like, this is crazy. Children need independence. When we thwart their independence, it's almost like thwarting their child development. And children have to see that we trust in them, and that if something goes wrong, that's okay. And that it's all right to be nervous, and you can do it. And it was like, hey,
You're making progress.
I'd say 16 years, and I got an article in the Parents Magazine that sounded like me. Okay, high five. Right.
You've conquered the territory.
That's it, right.
You've
My
planted the
work here is
flag.
done, right?
So, Lenore, this has been a blast. I ask this of every
Oh,
guest,
no.
and
What did I eat? What book would I read? What?
this show is called Dad Saves America because I believe that that's a role we as men can play that is
Mm-hmm.
really important,
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be celebrated, and is where our internal locus of control gets to go to work to make a difference in our families, our communities, and our country. How do you think about your role, not just as a mom, but
A dad.
as a dad, as the world's worst mom?
Mm.
Um, how do you think about your role in the American story?
Oh my God, I can't say that. I would sound like a jerk. Let's just say
I
Parents
ask
Magazine.
everyone, you have to answer. It's
My
okay.
role in American history, how
Be,
I've changed the world, me
be
and
as
Neil
grandiose,
Armstrong.
be as
Yeah.
grandiose or as small as you'd like.
I'd say that what's cool is that people are talking about the same things that obsess me. And once we start, well, I don't even believe that just thinking about them. Let me say this. We have 1,000 schools now that are doing the Let Grow experience, and that's just from this year. So all these kids are getting this, and all these parents are getting this chance to do something on their own and realize that's fantastic. I love the world. I love my parents who trust me out in there. That's 1 million kids. So I'd say 1 million for a start.
Lenore Skenazy, thanks for being on Dad Saves America again.
Yes, right. Thank you again.